The movie begins with a 7-year-old girl named Mary. Her uncle Frank wakes her up, prepares her breakfast, and gets her ready for school. We learn that Mary's mother, Diane, died shortly after giving birth, and since then, Frank has been raising Mary and taking care of her. Mary is upset because it's her first day of school, and she doesn't want to go. She tells Frank that she doesn't like learning, but Frank replies that he doesn't like repairing boats either, but it's his job, and he has to go every day. That's why Mary must go to school, even if she doesn't enjoy it. Mary smiles and tells him she's worried about leaving her one-eyed cat alone, as it needs someone to take care of it. Frank brushes off her concerns, saying she needs to go to school to make friends her own age. When the school bus arrives, Mary boards it, looking back at Frank sadly as the bus drives away. Just as the bus departs, Roberta, Frank's neighbor, calls out to him, but he doesn't respond and returns home. Roberta follows him, visibly upset, and urges Frank to get in his car, chase after Mary, and bring her back home. We then learn that Mary is an incredibly intelligent child, far beyond her years. Roberta fears that if the teachers discover that Mary is a prodigy, they will test her and isolate her among books and scientific journals. Frank reassures Roberta, telling her that Mary needs friends and social skills, and that he has agreed with Mary that she won't show off her intelligence in front of the school teachers. Meanwhile, Mary sits in class, bored because Bonnie, her math teacher, gives the children very simple questions. Mary mocks these easy questions, but Bonnie doesn't like her attitude, as Mary spoke without permission. She challenges Mary with more difficult math problems, which Mary answers correctly. Bonnie, skeptical at first, eventually realizes that Mary is special when she solves even more challenging problems effortlessly. At that moment, the school principal enters the classroom to greet the students. Bonnie is impressed by Mary, as she speaks and behaves far beyond her age. Later, Frank arrives to pick Mary up from school, and Bonnie follows them to talk to him about Mary. Frank apologizes for Mary's behavior, explaining that she was nervous because it was her first day of school. However, Bonnie tells him that she doesn't want to discuss that and shares that she feels Mary is exceptionally gifted because she answered math problems that are difficult for someone her age. Frank becomes uneasy and tells Bonnie that Mary is not a genius, explaining that he taught her how to solve math problems without using a calculator, a method developed by a mathematician long ago. Frank says that he himself learned this method when he was 8 years old. He then walks away, leaving Bonnie before she can continue the conversation. Bonnie later searches the internet for the method Frank mentioned, but she finds it hard to believe that a child could learn it. Meanwhile, Frank spends time with Mary, telling her that he is upset because she promised not to show her intelligence in front of the teachers. He wants everyone to treat her like an ordinary student, just like her classmates. Mary apologizes and asks Frank to take her out on the boat. Frank takes her on a boat ride, and afterward, they relax on the beach while Mary happily plays with her cat. Frank then talks to Mary, explaining the importance of making friends. The next day, Mary brings her cat to school and introduces him to her classmates, telling them how she found him in the street. She explains that she felt sorry for him because of his injury, which is why she took him in, and that he has been her best friend ever since. Her classmates are impressed and ask about the injury to the cat's eye, to which Mary replies that she doesn't know the cause. Bonnie is pleased to see Mary interacting politely and nicely with her classmates. As the days go by, Mary adjusts to school life and enjoys being with her classmates in class. One day, there is a math exam. Bonnie hands out the test papers to Mary and her classmates. As soon as Bonnie finishes distributing the papers, Mary immediately tells her that she has finished and answered all the questions. Bonnie, anticipating this, hands her another sheet with a college-level math test, wanting to see if Mary can solve it. Bonnie closely watches Mary as she tackles the exam, answering quickly and effortlessly. Bonnie becomes convinced that her suspicions are correct. Mary is a genius far beyond her years. Bonnie then researches Mary's family online and discovers that Mary's mother, Diane, was a famous mathematician with a significant reputation in her field, as she had solved incredibly difficult mathematical equations that no one else had been able to solve. Bonnie is shocked when she learns that Diane committed suicide for an unknown reason. Later that night, Bonnie meets Frank at the bar where he spends his evenings. She shows him the test that Mary completed and tells him that she is certain Mary is a genius, urging him not to lie to her because she knows the story of Mary's mother's death. Frank then tells her that on the day of Diane's death, she had called him wanting to talk about something important, but he didn't pay much attention because he had an appointment and returned home late. He was shocked when he found Mary alone in the living room and is shocked to discover that his sister has taken her own life in the bathroom. Bonnie smiles at Mary's father, who admits that he is irresponsible and explains that he and Diane divorced just 1 month after their marriage. Frank shares that his mother, Eve, distanced herself from them as soon as she learned that Diane was pregnant with Mary because she believed that the pregnancy would hinder Diane's research. Eve had high hopes for Diane, wanting her to win the Nobel Prize in mathematics, and therefore refused to raise Mary after Diane's death. The next day, Mary is on the school bus, where they have a project about making a model of a zoo. Mary sees her classmate Jason board the bus and she admires the animal model Jason made. However, another classmate bullies Jason, causing the model to fall and break. Mary becomes angry and hits the bully with a book. The school calls Frank to address what Mary did, and he finds her sitting in front of the principal's office. Frank tries to solve the situation, and when he meets with the principal, she tells him that Mary's behavior was violent towards her classmate and that she should be punished. However, Frank expresses his pride in Mary for standing up for her classmate against the bully, and the principal acknowledges that Frank has a point. She then changes the subject and mentions that Mary has special abilities in mathematics and that she could offer Mary a full scholarship to attend the most prestigious school for gifted students. Frank declines the offer, explaining that he wants Mary to live a normal life like any other child her age, especially since Mary's family has a bad history with schools for the gifted. We learn that Diane, Mary's mother, once attended such a school. Frank then takes Mary and leaves the school, with Bonnie questioning if he is sure about his decision, but Frank does not respond and walks away. The next day, Mary stands in front of her class and apologizes to her classmates for her behavior, reassuring them that they have nothing to fear from her. She also tells Jason that she really liked his project and asks the class to give him a round of applause. Jason is pleased with the recognition. Later, as Mary returns home with Frank, she is surprised to find a wealthy woman standing in front of the house. Frank explains that the woman is her grandmother, Eve. Eve has brought a laptop as a gift for Mary, telling her that it contains an important book on mathematics. Eve is taken aback when Mary tells her that she has already read the book. Frank is clearly uncomfortable with his mother's presence, and after Eve leaves, he follows her to say that he knows why she visited. The school principal had informed Eve that Mary inherited her mother's genius, which is why Eve decided to visit after 7 years. Eve tells Frank that this is not the right place to have such a conversation, so they go to a nearby cafe. At the cafe, Eve tells Frank that he cannot provide the life that Mary deserves and informs him that she intends to take Mary and raise her herself. Frank recalls that his sister wrote a letter before she died, stating that she did not want her daughter to be raised by her grandmother because she wanted Mary to have a normal life. Eve assures him that she can provide Mary with the life she deserves, but Frank interrupts, accusing her of lying. He believes that Eve wants to immerse Mary in the world of mathematics and refuses to let what happened to his sister happen to her daughter. Eve dismisses his concerns and advises him to think carefully before making a decision, revealing that she plans to sue for custody of Mary. She also mentions that Diane was on the verge of winning the Nobel Prize, but she could not complete her research and solve a particular equation due to her pregnancy. Eve wants Mary to continue her mother's legacy. After leaving, the next day, Frank finds Mary studying mathematics on the laptop and suggests they go out for a fun day, but Mary refuses, saying she wants to study. Frank forcefully takes Mary out, insisting on breaking her routine because he does not want her to become reclusive like her mother. Mary is happy spending time with Frank, but soon it's time for the first court session regarding Eve's lawsuit for custody of Mary. During the session, Eve's lawyer argues that Frank is not taking good care of Mary and that she is not living at the appropriate standard. The judge adjourns the case to another session to inspect Mary's living conditions. Afterward, Frank asked Roberta to take care of Mary for the night to give her a break from studying, to which Roberta agrees, as she loves Mary very much. Mary also loves Roberta, and they spend a wonderful time singing and dancing together. Meanwhile, Frank is at the bar, distressed by the ongoing situation. Bonnie joins him, and he confides his fear that Eve will take Mary away from him. Bonnie reassures him, saying that she would be very upset if that happened too. They spend the night talking and growing closer. The next day, Frank receives a court order requiring Mary to spend 2 days with her grandmother. Mary travels to her grandmother's house the following day, where Eve is delighted to have her. They sit together, and Eve shows her pictures of her mother. The next day, Eve takes Mary to the university, where they stand in front of the Hall of Fame, which features pictures of famous mathematicians. Next to them are empty frames, which Eve explains are reserved for the mathematicians who solved the 7 most difficult equations in history. Eve shows Mary Diane's name on the Hall of Fame, explaining that she was close to solving one of the equations before her death, which would have earned her a Nobel Prize. Eve is pleased when Mary confidently says that one day, her picture will be there too. Later, Eve takes Mary to meet a renowned mathematician named Seymour, who asks Mary to solve a very difficult equation. Mary tries to solve it, but she becomes anxious and cannot finish it. Evelyn is disappointed when Mary fails to solve the equation, but Mary explains that there was a mistake in the equation and that she could have solved it if it had been corrected. Evelyn, surprised, takes Mary back to Seymour, where Mary corrects the mistake and solves the equation. Seymour is amazed by Mary's talent, praises her, and apologizes, saying she will become a great mathematician like her mother. Mary returns to Frank, who is pleased to have her back and asks about her grandmother. Mary says she likes Evelyn but prefers to stay with Frank because she loves him more than anyone else. Frank promises he will not let her live with anyone else. The next day, during the court session, it is revealed that Evelyn sent Mary's father to court to claim guardianship. Frank's lawyer uses this opportunity to prove that Mary's father cannot be her guardian because he has not been involved in her life, leading to a ruling in Frank's favor. However, a final session is needed to determine Evelyn's guardianship of her granddaughter. When Frank returns home, he tells Mary about the court proceedings, which upsets her. She cries because she believes her father does not love her. To comfort her, Frank takes Mary and Roberta to the hospital, where they see a family joyfully welcoming a new baby. Frank tells Mary that this was exactly how her birth was celebrated, and she is uplifted. The next day is the final court session. Frank's lawyer suggests that, given Evelyn's wealth, the judge might rule in her favor. The lawyer proposes that Mary be adopted by another family and that Frank and Evelyn visit her once a month until Mary turns 12 and can decide where she wants to live. Frank is hesitant but agrees for Mary's sake. The next day, Frank visits the family who will adopt Mary, sees their home, and agrees to the adoption. However, when he takes Mary to her new home, she is devastated and refuses to live there. She cries and begs him not to leave her. Frank promises to visit monthly, but Mary feels betrayed and hits him in her anger. Frank leaves with a broken heart. That night, Frank meets Bonnie and expresses his sorrow over Mary's situation. The next day, he tries to visit Mary but is shocked to learn she does not want to see him. Frank is devastated and regrets his decision. Days later, Bonnie sees an adoption notice for Mary's cat, which leads Frank to a shelter. He discovers that the cat was left there by someone with a known allergy to cats, confirming that Evelyn orchestrated this to control Mary. Frank retrieves the cat and returns to the new home to find Mary being tutored. He confronts Evelyn and insists Mary return with him. A confrontation ensues, but Roberta intervenes. Frank manages to reunite with Mary, who is overjoyed to have her cat back. Evelyn is shocked when she learns from Frank that Diane, Mary's mother, had solved the equation before her death and that Frank was instructed to publish it. Evelyn, understanding that she was the cause of Diane's death, decides to inform the world of Diane's achievement. Months later, Mary is seen studying at university. After class, Frank takes her to the park to play with friends. Bonnie looks at Frank with admiration for his success in solving the difficult problem and helping Mary excel in her studies while also enjoying a normal childhood. The film ends. If you finished the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more movie summaries. Thanks for listening, my loves. See you in another video.